All right, well, first I'll say welcome. I see some new faces here today. Welcome to those who are here and joining us on this Memorial Day, beautiful weather weekend outside. Hopefully we'll be able to spend some good time here together, and then you can go enjoy the nice weather and the nice weekend here. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that I didn't have planned until 2 days ago. Some of you may know I was out of town this past week. Okay, and on my way back in town, I was out of town from Monday, and I came back Thursday night into Friday morning. So I was on the West Coast, and I took a red eye on Thursday night into Friday. It's kind of a tiring week, okay? So the whole idea with the red eye is that you're just going to sleep the whole time on the plane. You leave at 10 p.m. on the West Coast. You arrive back here at 7 a.m. We get on the plane, okay? And like I said, I'm tired, and I'm just falling asleep in the airport. And we get on the plane, and the flight is packed. So I got an aisle seat, and then next to me, there's two people, a young lady and a young man, okay? Not together. First thing I do is I sit down. The young guy is the iPod. He's got like 6 headphones coming out of him, and he's playing with the thing. And this is good. This is exactly what I need next to me because I need to sleep. I'm exhausted, okay? And then the girl was reading whatever she's reading or whatever. So I'm sitting on my plane, and I'm getting ready to fall asleep. The flight was 5 hours long, okay? 5 hours and some change. Of those 5 hours, we spent the first 3.5 talking. We spent 3.5 hours of a 5.5 hour or 5 hour flight or something like that. I spent talking with these people. We weren't talking about, oftentimes when I'm still on a plane, people's questions like, what are you in church and this and that. We weren't talking about what are you in church. We weren't talking about why you got a beard and why you got a black robe. We weren't talking about that. We were talking about serious questions. Questions like, what's salvation? Questions like, do you know who goes to heaven and not goes to heaven? Questions like, why does God allow this to happen to this person? Questions like, why did this happen to me in my personal life? Questions like, why did this priest tell me this when I was 7 years old in Catholic school? Serious questions, and believe me, in front of God, I wanted to sleep the whole time. The whole time I was just waiting for it to end so that I could go to sleep. But these people kept coming and asking real questions. And believe me, if it wasn't a red-eye flight, like if it wasn't a flight that where they had work the next day and I had work the next day, we'd probably still be talking right now. So from that conversation, okay, I learned a few things, and I wanted to share what I learned with you guys. I call them lessons from a red eye. I learned 2 lessons that night, which are very, very clear to me, and I think you would agree with me. First thing that I learned is that people are hungry. People are hungry for the truth. I promise you, there was at least 4 or 5 times in the conversation where I said to them, because you know, as a priest and as a preacher, when someone asks questions like this, you run and get excited and you get your Bible verses and stuff like that, and I felt like maybe I'm annoying them and offending them. So at least 4 times I said, if you guys want to stop and go to sleep, or you want to watch your movie, like just tell me to shut up and I'll be happy to go to sleep. And they kept asking more questions, and tell me this, and tell me that. And they kept going and going and going. What I'm saying is, it wasn't me leading the conversation, it was them leading the conversation. And believe it or not, I don't know, but like I said, it was a red eye, okay? So everyone else on the entire plane was trying to sleep, okay? And I was sitting there, and I'm screaming, and I'm belting out, and John this, and then John 3 that, and we're screaming back and forth. And believe me, other people from other rows were kind of leaning in. They figured they're not going to sleep anyway. They might as well listen into the conversation. People are hungry for the truth, to the point that I believe that people are more hungry to hear than we are to speak. People are more hungry to hear than we are to speak, and that says something bad about us. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says that God has made everything beautiful in its time. He has put eternity in their hearts. Every one of us, I don't care. The people that I spoke with, by the way, are not practicing Christians at all. They're far away. Far, far, far away. Each one in their own situation. But they're eager to know about God. Even though they don't care about God, they want to know about God. Even though they don't live for heaven, they want to know about heaven. Even though they never once let any of this heaven and forgiveness and mercy stuff affect their behavior, they want to know answers to questions. Why? Because God has programmed inside all of us a desire for eternity. A desire for something after us. You know, this idea about atheism, okay, which a lot of people now say they're atheists. Atheism is something totally that's been invented over the past 100 years. But for the first thousands and thousands and thousands of years of civilization, of society, of people, everyone knew there had to be a God. There had to be a God. Maybe they worshiped the wrong one. The Egyptians worshiped the sun, and these guys worshiped the mummies or whatever. But everyone has inside them, there has to be something bigger than this life. Atheism is something that was just invented in the last few years just because people don't want to worship something outside. They want to worship themselves. But it takes a lot more. I read this one time. It takes a lot more faith to be an atheist than to believe in God. Okay? What I mean by that is it takes a lot more hoping and guessing and maybeing to be an atheist than it takes to believe in God, because God has programmed us to believe in eternity. Why this is important? Because like I said, this is something that condemns me and you. This fact condemns me and you. People around want to talk about Christianity and want to talk about spiritual matters. You know who doesn't want to talk about it? It's us. And that's bad. And that's bad. Believe me, if it was just these two people on the plane, I'd say, okay, maybe. But I promise you, in front of God, and there's even someone here today who can attest to that, that in the hour and a half that I spent in the airport before I got on the plane, 3 people came up to me and asked me about spiritual matters. And believe it or not, one of them is here today. And he was flying from the West Coast to the East Coast, and he's here. He came to church today. People are interested in spiritual matters. We're the ones who are not interested in spiritual matters. We think we're going to offend, or we think we're this or that, or maybe, which gets to my second point, we don't know what the answer to those questions are. And that's what we need to talk about today. Because just like I learned that people are hungry, I learned people are very, very confused. And I wish I could say people outside are confused. I was sharing this story with someone. I saw him on Friday, and he was asking me how the flight was, and I told him this. And I said, he asked me hard questions, like serious questions about salvation and things like that. And he said, did they ask any that you didn't know the answer to? I was like, what do you mean they didn't know the answer to? He's like, did they stump you on any one, or you were lucky enough to get them all right? I'm like, what do you mean lucky enough to get them all right? Like, we should know the answers to these things. And if I don't know the answers to them, I should find out the answer. And if you don't know the answer, you should find out. And if someone says, why does bad stuff happen to good people? You shouldn't say, darn, they asked a hard one. Or you shouldn't say, darn, I wasn't listening the other day. Or when someone says, who's going to heaven and who's going to hell, or how do we know judgment, this and that, you should know the answers to these questions. Is there a more important topic in the history of all the world than salvation? Unfortunately for us, a lot of times we're the problem because we're confused. And that's what I hope that we can talk about here today. You have questions just like them people on the plane had questions. What is salvation? We throw around a term like salvation easily. Salvation. What does it mean? How do we get it? Do I have it? Does he have it? Am I going on the right side or the wrong side? Let's try to understand the answers to some of these questions. Unfortunately, terms like salvation, saved, things like that, they're thrown around loosely. I go on the street, find 10 people who are Christians, and say, what does salvation mean? I get 10 answers. I may get 11, in fact. Okay, someone may guess one or something else. One will say it's baptism. One will say it's a belief in your heart. One will say it's you say this or you pray this. Everyone's going to say something different. What does it mean, salvation? We're going to talk about that today. But before I talk about it, okay, I have like a little asterisk or a little preface, something. I'm not here today to condemn anyone. Okay? We are not here today to condemn anyone. I'm not coming here today and saying who's going to heaven and who's going to hell. I'm not saying that. That's what everyone wants. There's only one person that I may condemn today, and that's you. Because in the end, our concern